They mocked her for being a woman. But when the engine roared, everyone went silent, but she was a strong woman. Before we begin, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Strong women walk together. Subscribe and come with us. Enjoy the story. Chapter 1, The Breakdown and the Underestimation. The highway stretched like a black ribbon under a bleeding sunset. Mary adjusted the rear view, the old radio crackling with a song her dad loved. It punched her chest with memory. Since he died, nothing felt the same. The shop was her war now. His legacy. Her fight to keep it alive. Then she saw smoke on the shoulder. An old pickup, hood up. 3 men circled it, frustrated. Mary pulled over, tied her hair back, and asked calmly. Trouble? They looked her over. One smirked. Looks like the princess took a wrong turn. Another laughed. What's next? Gonna paint your nails with motor oil? Mary didn't bite. She walked to the truck, ignoring the heat in her veins. One glance under the hood told her everything: carburetor misaligned. If they started it, the engine was done. You start it like this, it blows, she said flat. They laughed harder. Sure, sweetheart. You a mechanic now? She didn't answer. Just grabbed a wrench and got to work. Each twist felt like striking back at every laugh, every whisper that said women don't belong here. Her father's voice echoed. Never walk away from a car, or from yourself. Minutes later, she turned the key. A roar split the silence. The truck vibrated like a beast awake. The men froze. Mary stepped back, wiping grease on her jeans. Guess nail polish doesn't do that, she said, a blade of a smile on her lips. The oldest man's smirk was gone. He studied her like a puzzle. What's your name? Mary. John Eastwood. His voice had weight. Command wrapped in calm. Thanks, he said. You just saved more than an engine. Mary shrugged, ready to leave, until his next words stopped her cold. I want you at my place. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. For what? A test. Pass it, and you'll never worry about bills again. And if I refuse? Then you go back to fighting not to lose everything you love. His eyes didn't blink. Neither did hers. But when she slid into her car, one truth burned louder than the engine. She wasn't walking away. Not this time. Chapter 2, The First Turning Point. The truck's roar still throbbed in Mary's chest. Grease stained her hands like trophies. She barely noticed John watching her, no smirk now, only something colder. Calculation. He walked up slow, gravel crunching under polished shoes. What's your name? Mary, she said, steady. Mary, he let it roll like a secret. Thank you. You just saved a classic. Mary shrugged. Didn't want to see a Ford F-100 ruined by bad hands. His brow arched, surprise flashing in his eyes. You know engines. I live engines. He held her gaze, then offered his hand. John Eastwood. The name landed heavy. She shook it once and let go fast, his warmth sticking to her skin longer than she liked. I need someone like you, he said. Come to my place tomorrow. I don't make house calls for strangers. It's not a call. It's a chance. Pass the test, and money stops being your problem. Mary almost laughed. Almost. But then she saw it, his eyes didn't joke. And the weight of bills crushed her chest like chains. Why me? Because you're better than anyone I've seen in years. His tone was a blade. And I pay for the best. Mary hesitated, nails biting her palms. Walk away. Or take the road that could ruin or save her. Her father's voice rose like steel. Never walk away from a car, or from yourself. She exhaled hard. Fine. I'll come. John's smile cut like a shadow. Good. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. When Mary slid into her car, her pulse thundered louder than the engine. Ahead, the horizon bled red as the last sun sank. Behind, a stranger with too much power and a look that promised one thing. Her life was about to change. And maybe not for the better. Chapter 2, The First Turning Point. The echo of the engine's roar still trembled through Mary's bones as the truck idled on the shoulder. She wiped her hands on her jeans, the grease like wore paint across her skin. For the first time all day, she felt something close to triumph. A small, fierce flame in a desert of doubt. Then she noticed him. The man in the expensive shirt, truck owner, wasn't smiling anymore. The sarcasm was gone. His expression had sharpened, eyes narrowing like a lens adjusting. He studied her not like a mechanic, but like a riddle. He closed the distance in measured steps, boots crunching gravel in the dusk. What's your name? His voice was low, smooth, but carried weight, the kind of weight that fills rooms without trying. Mary tightened her jaw. The wind tugged at her hair as she stared back. Mary. He repeated it once, softer, like he was trying it on. Then louder. Mary. He gave a short nod, extending a hand. John Eastwood. She hesitated, then shook it. His grip was firm, deliberate, nothing like the calloused hands she was used to. His skin was warm, his eyes colder than steel. When she pulled away, something stayed, an echo of control she hated to feel. You just saved me a fortune, he said. And probably a tow bill that would have made my driver cry. Mary shrugged, her voice flat. Just didn't want to see a classic murdered. One brow arched, curiosity flickering across his face. You know what you're talking about? Ford F-100, she said without blinking. Old series. Whoever touched that car before you didn't know what the hell they were doing. Silence stretched for a beat too long. Then his mouth curved, not into a full smile, but something close. Interesting. Behind him, the two younger men were quieter now. No more jokes about nail polish. No more snickers. The weight had shifted. Mary felt it in the air like static before lightning. John's gaze didn't leave her. You own a shop. Yeah. Doing well? The question landed like a punch. Mary hesitated. Thought about the bills stacked like bricks back on her counter. The final notice from the bank, glowing red on her phone screen. She lifted her chin anyway. Well enough. He tilted his head slightly, as if reading lies like blueprints. Then he stepped closer. I want you at my place tomorrow. 8 a.m. Mary blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. His tone was calm, but underneath was something sharp, like a command wearing a smile. For what? John's eyes flicked to the truck, then back to her. A test. Mary let out a dry laugh. Not interested. Think again. The way he said it wasn't a threat, not exactly. But it was heavy, loaded. The kind of tone that wraps chains around choices. She hated men like that. Always had. Men who thought power was oxygen. But the way he looked at her wasn't lust, wasn't pity. It was something stranger. She folded her arms. Why me? Because you're better than anyone I've seen in years, he said simply. And I don't gamble with second best. His confidence was a live wire, dangerous and magnetic. Mary forced herself to look away, to focus on the horizon bleeding into night. The weight of reality crashed back, the overdue rent, the calls from the bank, the legacy of a father who built her world with grease and grit. Her father's voice whispered from memory. Never walk away from a car, or from yourself. Mary's heart pounded so loud it drowned the wind. She turned back, every nerve screaming not to trust him. But her mouth betrayed her. Fine. I'll come. But only to see what this is. His lips curved just enough to be dangerous. Good. He stepped back, that calm power rolling off him like heat. Tomorrow. Don't be late. Mary stared at him one last time, then slid into her car. Hands gripping the wheel like it was the only steady thing left in her life. As she drove, the sky fell black behind her, the road stretching like a scar into nowhere. Her pulse refused to slow. One thought hammered harder than all the rest. She wasn't just stepping into his world tomorrow. She was stepping into a storm. And storms don't come without lightning. Chapter 3, The Unusual Request and Crossing into Hostile Territory. The next morning broke pale and cold. Mary gripped the wheel tighter as the iron gates loomed ahead, taller than any garage door she'd ever seen. They slid open without a sound, like jaws welcoming prey. She should have been at her shop. Oil changes, brake checks, hustling for cash to keep the lights on. Instead, here she was, rolling down a tree-lined driveway toward a world that smelled like money and secrets. When the garage came into view, her breath hitched. It wasn't a garage. It was a temple. Glass walls reflecting the sky. Floors gleaming like mirrors. And inside, machines. Dozens of them, lined in rows, chrome glittering under sterile white lights. Legends on wheels. Cars worth more than her entire life stacked together. Mary killed the engine, heart pounding like it wanted out. She stepped out slow, boots crunching on gravel. Every instinct screamed she didn't belong here. John was waiting. No entourage. No smirk this time. White shirt, sleeves rolled to forearms that looked carved from iron, collar open just enough to hint at power that didn't need a tie. He didn't move when she approached, just let his eyes skim over her like he was reading a file. You came, he said, voice calm but edged. Mary forced a shrug. I don't like leaving questions unanswered. Something flickered at the corner of his mouth. Maybe a smile. Maybe not. He motioned her inside with a tilt of his head. The heavy glass doors swallowed them into a world of spotless chrome and money that hummed in silence. The smell hit first, leather, oil, something chemical. Mary's fingers itched to touch everything, but she locked her arms tight. She wasn't here to gawk. She was here to work. To win. John stopped by a car so black it looked carved from midnight. Lines smooth, dangerous, seductive. His hand brushed the hood like it was alive. This one, he said. Fix it. Mary stepped closer, scanning details with hungry eyes. She knew this model. Rare. Sacred. The kind of car that makes collectors sell their souls. Her throat went dry. And if I can't? Then you walk away and forget this place exists. Mary met his stare, pulse racing. He wasn't bluffing. Not a bone in that body knew how. She looked back at the car, fingers curling at her sides. She thought of the shop. The stack of bills. Her father's voice echoing like steel in her chest. Never walk away from a car, or from yourself. When do we start? She asked. Now. The next hours bled together in a blur of bolts and steel. Mary lost herself in the engine, hands moving like they remembered a song. Every click, every wrench twist, was a defiance, a punch in the face of every man who said she couldn't. Sweat dripped down her spine, streaking her tank top. Her arms ached, but her focus never cracked. John stayed close. Too close. Leaning against benches, arms folded, watching with eyes that stripped her down, not with lust, but with something colder. Calculation. Control. Sometimes he moved in, reaching for a tool, the heat of him brushing her skin, the faint burn of cologne twisting her stomach in ways she hated. She told herself it was nothing. That it didn't matter. That all that mattered was the car breathing again. Then a shadow moved in the doorway. Broad shoulders. Tattooed arms inked like a map of war. Paul. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. The way he leaned on the frame, cigarette dangling, said it all. You don't belong here. And I'm going to make sure you never do. Mary forced her eyes back to the engine, fingers steady even as her gut nodded. The sound of his boots on concrete slashed through the hum of tools as he prowled closer. You're taking your time, he said, voice a low growl. Mary didn't look up. Good work takes time. Something you'd know if you cared about the cars more than your ego. A sharp laugh. Poisonous. You think you've got this handled? You're playing in a world that chews people like you alive. Mary wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, then lifted her eyes slow, letting him see the fire there. You done talking? Because I've got work to do. His jaw tightened, muscle ticking hard. For a second, she thought he'd lash out. Instead, he smirked, leaning closer, his voice a whisper against her ear. You won't last the week. He turned and walked away, leaving the stench of smoke and warning behind. Mary didn't move for a full breath. Then her wrench hit the bolt with a sharp clink, and the sound was a promise. Watch me. By the time night fell, the engine purred, rough, shaky, but alive. Mary killed the power, chest heaving with victory. Tiny. Temporary. But hers. When she looked up, John was still there. Arms folded. Expression unreadable. Impressive, he said finally. Mary smirked, tired and defiant. Get used to it. John's gaze burned for a beat longer than necessary. Then he turned, his voice slicing through the silence as he walked out. Tomorrow. Same time. The door closed behind him. Mary stared at it, her pulse thrumming with a truth she couldn't ignore. She hadn't just stepped into a challenge. She'd stepped into a war. And wars don't end with the first battle. Chapter 4, The First Betrayal and the Invisible Wound. The cold clang of a wrench echoed in the hidden garage. Mary worked deep inside the engine, sweat running down her spine, black grease streaking her arms. Every twist felt like a fight, not just with bolts, but with ghosts. Her father's voice pulsed like a heartbeat. Never walk away from a car, or from yourself. John lingered near the shadows, arms folded, eyes sharp as scalpels. He didn't talk much. Didn't need to. His stare was enough to rattle anyone. But Mary kept her head down. Focus. Precision. Then a presence thickened the air. Paul. He leaned on the doorway like a predator with time to kill. Cigarette smoke curled between them. His voice slid in low, mocking. You're taking too long. Mary didn't look up. Good work takes time. Something you wouldn't understand. He chuckled, humorless. You're in over your head. This isn't your world. Mary raised her eyes, letting him taste the steel in her stare. You sound scared. His smirk cracked for a split second. Then he stepped back, words dripping venom. Keep dreaming, princess. But remember, you don't call the shots here. When he left, silence roared louder than his threats. Mary worked on, but her gut twisted. That wasn't idle talk. That was a warning. Hours later, she reached for a tool, and froze. A bolt she'd tightened earlier was loose. Not by mistake. Tampered. Her chest burned with rage. He wanted her to fail. Maybe worse. She clenched the wrench until her knuckles blanched, jaw set like steel. When the engine coughed and roared weakly alive, relief hit like a flood. A win, but fragile. She packed up and headed out, body heavy, nerves on fire. The night outside was black, the long driveway slicing through shadows. Every pair of headlights in her mirror felt like a threat. Back at the shop, the smell of oil greeted her like an old friend. But peace didn't follow. The phone buzzed, 5 missed calls, 1 text from the bank, final notice. Foreclosure imminent. Mary gripped the counter until her arms shook. Tears came hot and fast, rage, fear, exhaustion melting into one brutal truth. She was running out of time. Out of options. And Paul? He wasn't done. She could feel it in her bones. This wasn't sabotage. It was war. And the next strike would cut deeper than loose bolts. Chapter 5, The Strike in the Dark and the Choice That Changes Everything. Night wrapped the shop in silence. Mary sat on the bench, head in her hands, bills stacked like tombstones around her. The bank's last message still glared from her phone, final notice, payment required. She gripped her father's old wrench like a lifeline. Never walk away from a car, or from yourself. The words burned like fire in her chest. Outside, wind rattled the doors. She killed the lights, grabbed her bag, and stepped into the empty street. Her boots echoed against wet asphalt as she reached her car. Then. That feeling. A shiver crawling up her spine. She spun. Nothing. Just the wind. Mary slid in, slammed the locks, and drove. Every flicker of headlights in her mirror felt like eyes. By the time she reached home, nerves were raw. She dropped her bag, exhaled. Thud. The sound came from the kitchen. Heart hammering, she gripped the wrench and crept toward the noise. A window tapped against the frame, blown open by the wind. She exhaled hard. Shut it. Relief lasted 2 seconds. Pinned to her front door was a note. Fixed with a knife. Mary froze. Fingers shaking as she read the jagged words. You don't belong here. Blood iced in her veins. She crushed the paper, grabbed her phone, and stopped. What would she say? No cameras. No proof. No help. She dialed another number. John's. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice sharp with sleep. Mary? What happened? Someone broke in, she spat. Left a note. A threat. Silence stretched like a blade before he said. I'm sending someone. Now. Minutes later, headlights carved the dark. A black SUV slid to the curb. 2 men stepped out, hard eyes, black coats. Mr. Eastwood's orders, one said. Mary hated it. Hated needing anyone. But fear had a taste now, metallic, bitter, clinging to her tongue. That night, she didn't sleep. Sat in the chair by the window, the note burning like a brand in her mind. And somewhere in that silence, a choice crystallized. Paul wanted her gone. Broken. Fine. If he wanted a war, he'd get one. At dawn, Mary drove back through the gates of John's empire, jaw set, pulse thundering like pistons. This wasn't just about saving a shop anymore. It was survival. Chapter 6, The Second Strike and the Price of Silence. Morning sunlight spilled over polished floors, but nothing felt bright. Mary walked into the garage with her jaw tight, eyes scanning every shadow. The night's threat clung to her like oil. Paul was there. Leaning against a workbench, arms folded, smile thin as a blade. Morning, princess, he said. Mary ignored him, heading straight for the covered car, the beast that had haunted her dreams. Her fingers gripped the fabric, peeling it back like unwrapping a secret. Steel lines gleamed in the harsh white light. John appeared behind her, voice low. You sure you want to keep going? After last night? Mary didn't blink. You want me gone? I want you safe. His words were sharp, but his eyes softened. She turned back to the engine. Then let me finish. The hours that followed were war in silence. Every twist of the wrench was defiance, every bolt locked a promise, I won't break. Then it happened. A hiss. A spray of hot fluid that barely missed her arm. Mary killed the power, chest tight. A hose, cut clean. Not where. Not chance. Sabotage. Paul's shadow stretched across the hood. Problem. His voice slid like poison. Mary clenched her jaw. Nothing I can't fix. He leaned closer, voice dropping. Walk away before something worse happens. Her grip tightened around the wrench. You sound scared. His grin curled slow. Scared of what? Being forgotten. For one flash, his eyes cracked, dark truth flickering through. Then the mask snapped back. We'll see who disappears first. When John returned, Paul was gone. Mary didn't mention the sabotage. Didn't need to. She fixed the damage, her hand steady though her pulse roared like thunder. By nightfall, the car's heart was almost whole again. Mary shut the hood, exhausted, sweat streaking her skin. She walked out into a world painted in orange dusk, and froze. A silhouette stood near the gate. Motionless. Watching. The air turned cold in her lungs. She slid into her car, gunned the engine, and drove hard, every curve slicing like a blade through the dark. Back at the shop, she collapsed against the counter. Her fingers brushed the crumpled note in the trash. She didn't throw it away this time. She grabbed it, held it like a vow. Paul wanted fear. He'd get something else. Mary scrolled her phone, stopped on a number she hadn't dialed in years. The voice on the other end cracked with surprise. Mary? I need you, she said. Now. Pause. Then a single word. I'm coming. Mary ended the call, staring at the locked door, pulse hammering like a revving engine. The war had just changed. Chapter 7, The Price of Courage and the Trap in the Garage. Night dropped like a curtain, rain slicing the sky. Mary waited in the shop, pacing between grease-stained walls. Then the bell over the door rang. Helena. Tall, leather jacket clinging to her like armor, hair knotted messily, eyes sharp as razors. Mary exhaled, tension cracking for a second. Took you long enough, Mary muttered. Helena smirked. You call after 3 years and expect me to sprint? Lucky for you, I still owe you. Mary didn't smile. She spilled everything, the sabotage, the threats, the note pinned with a knife. Helena listened in silence, jaw tightening like steel cables. Finally, her voice sliced through the dark. So, you're in a billionaire's garage, fixing cars worth more than my soul, and some tattooed Neanderthal wants you gone. Mary's nod was enough. You should have called me sooner, Helena said, pulling off her jacket. Let's make sure he regrets breathing. Morning came gray, skies heavy like storm clouds loaded with nails. Mary drove through the gates with Helena in the passenger seat. The second they stepped out, the stairs burned in, 2 men whispering near the bay, laughter curling like smoke. Paul leaned against the doorframe, cigarette hanging from his grin. Predatory. Confident. Helena clocked him instantly. Her voice dropped, lethal. That's him, isn't it? Yeah. He doesn't laugh, Mary. He bares teeth before he bites. Inside, John waited by the black car, sleeves rolled, forearms corded tight, his face a locked vault. His eyes flicked to Helena, then back to Mary. Didn't know you were bringing backup, he said, voice sharp. Now you do, Mary shot back, chin high. Tension crackled like live wires. Then John's gaze shifted to the car. Final phase. Get it done today. Mary nodded, rolling her sleeves, muscles taut with fire. She dove in, Helena circling like a guard dog, eyes cutting through shadows. Hours passed in a war of bolts and silence, until a sharp snap shattered it. Mary dropped to the floor. A stabilizer pin, broken clean in half. Not rust. Not age. Cut. Her stomach turned to stone. If she'd fired the engine, the suspension could have failed, maybe worse. She rose slowly, the broken pin in her fist, eyes scanning until they found him. Paul. Leaning in the doorway, smirk gone now, something colder on his face. Helena moved like a blade, boots slamming concrete. You did this. Paul tilted his head, voice pure venom. Don't know what you mean. Helena closed the gap, their breaths colliding. You play wolf, but you're just a rat with muscles. Before sparks became fire, John's voice cut the air like a whip. What the hell's going on? Mary didn't waste words. She held up the pin, metal gleaming accusation. John froze for a beat. His jaw flexed, then his voice came flat and lethal. Who did this? Silence. Paul said nothing. Shadows answered for him. John turned to Mary, tone slicing steel. Can you finish? Mary's chin lifted. Yes. Then don't leave this garage until it's done. When he left, Paul's eyes burned through her, a promise etched in hate, this isn't over. Mary knew it wasn't. She felt it coil around her ribs like barbed wire. She bent over the car again, sweat dripping, hands moving faster than fear. Hours later, when the engine roared to life, loud, savage, alive, victory hit her like fire. But across the floor, Paul didn't flinch. No rage. No threats. Just calm. A cold, patient calm that chilled her bones. Helena whispered the truth Mary already knew. He's planning something bigger. Outside, the sky split open with thunder. And Mary understood. Tonight, the storm wasn't just weather. It was war. Chapter 8, The Storm and the Fall. Rain hammered the roof like bullets. Mary worked alone in the vast garage, the hum of fluorescent lights mixing with the storm's growl. The car gleamed under the harsh white glow, its engine almost ready to roar for real. One more night, she told herself. One more push, and this nightmare would turn into freedom. Every twist of her wrench was a strike against fear. But the feeling lingered, the sense of being watched. Shadows stretched long across the floor, trembling with every flash of lightning. Then it came. A metallic crack from the far end of the garage. Mary froze. Lifted her head slow. Nothing moved. Just the wind whispering through a half-open window. She moved toward the sound, boots loud against the polished floor, every nerve singing with alarm. Her hand brushed the first car cover, yanked it down, nothing. Checked another. Empty silence. Her breath fogged in the cold air as she turned back. And saw him. Paul. Stepping out from the shadows, smile curling like smoke, eyes glinting under the flicker of light. Still here, princess. His voice dripped menace, calm as poison. Mary gripped the wrench like a blade. What do you want? He circled her slow, predator stalking prey. To remind you, this isn't your world. And people who don't belong. His voice dropped, razor sharp. They get broken. Mary's jaw locked. Try me. The laugh that left his throat was low and deadly. Then he lunged. The wrench clanged to the floor as Paul slammed her back against the bench, his hands iron cuffs on her arms. She fought like fire, kicks, elbows, anything, but he crushed every move, breath burning her skin. Let go, she shouted, voice raw with fury. And then. Crack. Paul jerked back, blood spraying from his nose. Behind him stood Helena, both hands gripping a steel rod, chest heaving. Her voice was gasoline on flames. Touch her again and you'll leave in pieces. Paul's laugh was thick with blood now, but colder than before. This isn't over, he hissed, before storming out, the door slamming like a gunshot. Mary stood frozen, lungs dragging in air, muscles trembling. Helena dropped the rod, grabbed her shoulders. "You okay?" Mary nodded, barely. But nothing was okay. Nothing would ever be okay again. 30 minutes later, John arrived, rain dripping off his coat, eyes scanning the blood smear on the floor. His face hardened into something brutal. "What happened?" "Ask your dog," Helena snapped. Paul's name burned in the silence like acid. John's jaw flexed, rage simmering like a live wire. "I'm ending this," he growled, spinning toward the door. Mary grabbed his arm. "No. That'll make it worse." "It's already worse," he fired back, storming out into the night. The slam shook the walls. Rain kept pounding, harder, louder, like the sky itself warning her. This wasn't the end. It was the start of something even darker. Chapter 9, The Silent Trap. Morning came heavy, dragging a sky-bruised gray. Mary hadn't slept, curled on a bench, Helena standing guard with a steel glare that dared anyone to try. The storm outside had stopped, but inside, the air was thicker than oil. Mary brewed bitter coffee and stared at the car. The machine that could change everything. Her pulse thudded at the thought of Paul's hands anywhere near it. The sound of tires broke her thoughts. John stepped in, no entourage, shirt creased, eyes rimmed red. He looked less like a billionaire now and more like a man stretched thin. "Couldn't sleep," he said, voice raw. "Kept thinking about you, and this mess." Mary didn't answer, just shoved a cup toward him. His fingers brushed hers for half a second too long. "What about Paul?" she asked finally. John's jaw flexed. "Gone. For now. But men like him? They don't vanish. They wait." Helena stirred awake in the corner, eyes hard as nails. "He's not done. That look last night. That was personal." Mary nodded. Fear tried to slither in, but she crushed it. No room for fear now. By noon, John pulled her away. Not to a glass tower or private lounge, just a roadside diner where the air smelled of fried potatoes and rain-soaked asphalt. They sat in the back booth, alone for the first time since this started. John stirred his coffee, voice low. "I should have told you sooner, who Paul really is." Mary's brow furrowed. "Then tell me now." His gaze locked on hers, steel hard. "He was like family once. I gave him everything. Trust, money, power. And he gutted me, slow, in the dark. Betrayal like that changes a man." Mary's grip tightened on the mug. The story fit Paul's venom too well. "So this is what I walked into. A war between men who used to be brothers." John's mouth curved in a bitter smile. "Something like that. But now. I trust you more than anyone." Before Mary could answer, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One link. She tapped. The video that filled the screen made her blood freeze. The garage. Night. Her, asleep on the bench. Paul stepping from the shadows, standing over her for endless seconds. Then Helena bursting in. The strike. The blood. Every frame caught. And then, Paul's face, smirking at the camera like a wolf. Mary's lungs locked. John saw it too, his reflection burning on the screen. His voice dropped, lethal. "Find him. Now." But Mary's eyes caught something worse, a blur in the corner of the video. Paul crouching near the car. His hand moving inside the engine bay. Fast. She shot to her feet. "We need to get back. Now." They tore down the road, tires spitting gravel. The iron gates yawned wide as they skidded to a stop. Mary ran to the car, heart pounding, ripped the hood open. And felt the world tilt. A line sliced clean. Gas pooling under the intake. One spark, And the car, and Mary, would have gone up like a bomb. Helena cursed behind her. He was going to kill you. Mary stepped back, dizzy with rage. John slammed the hood shut, voice jagged glass. This ends tonight. But Mary wasn't listening. She could taste the truth like blood. Paul didn't want her scared anymore. He wanted her gone. Forever. Chapter 10, The Final Threat and the Irreversible Choice. Morning crept in gray and hollow. Mary splashed water on her face, stared at the cracked mirror. Green eyes burning, jaw locked, hands still traced with grease. Her father's voice rose like steel in her mind. Never walk away from a car, or from yourself. Her phone buzzed. A new video. No name, no message. She tapped. The screen filled with the front of her shop. Paul's voice crawled through the speaker. Nice place to end it. The camera tilted. A gas can at his feet. A match twirling between tattooed fingers. Then the laugh, low, poisonous, before the screen went black. Mary's grip crushed the phone until her knuckles blanched. John arrived minutes later. She shoved the phone into his hands. He watched, face hardening with each frame, then hurled it against the wall. This ends now, he growled. Mary blocked his path. No. His eyes burned like a furnace. No. This is my fight, John. Not yours. He stepped closer, voice like thunder caged in flesh. You don't get it. He won't stop until you're ash. Neither will I. The silence roared louder than any storm. John stared like she'd just shifted gravity. Finally, his voice cracked softer, raw. Why, Mary? You could have run yesterday. She smiled, bitter and bright. Because running means dying a little every day. And I'm not dead yet. He closed his eyes, exhaled fire, then opened them blazing. Then let me stand with you. Mary didn't answer. Just grabbed her jacket. He wants a war. He gets one. They drove under a sky the color of old steel. Wind slashed through cracked windows, biting cold. Helena sat in the back, silent as a drawn blade. The shop rose like a ghost, familiar walls, faded sign. But today, it wasn't a workshop. It was a battlefield. Mary stepped out, boots crunching gravel, and froze. Paul was waiting. Leaning against a dented truck, cigarette dangling, grin carved in venom. This what you've got? Mary called. Notes and matches. His laugh cut the air like a knife. No, sweetheart. That was the warm-up. He flicked the cigarette, crushed it under his boot, and swung the truck door open. Get in. Helena's voice snapped like a whip. Like hell she will. Mary raised a hand, stopping her cold. I'm going. Paul's grin spread slow and cruel. Brave girl. The cab stank of smoke and sweat. Paul drove without a word, jaw locked, eyes forward. Silence worse than any threat. When the truck stopped, Mary felt her blood freeze. A dead warehouse loomed, walls eaten by rust. Inside, shadows dripped like oil, chains swinging in stale air. And in the center, under a black tarp, something waited. Paul ripped it back with a flourish. Mary's breath shattered. Her father's car. The one that vanished after his death. She stumbled forward, fingers grazing the curve she knew like bone. Touching it was like touching his voice, his laugh, his ghost. Why? She rasped. Paul leaned close, words sliding like a blade against her ear. Because now you understand what's at stake. Stand with me, and it's yours. Walk away, and it burns with your shop. Tears stung, hot and helpless. Then rage swallowed them whole. She turned, eyes like green fire. You just gave me the reason I needed to destroy you. Paul's smile twisted slow, savoring the war in her gaze. Then let's see what you've got, princess. And in that breathless instant, Mary knew. This wasn't about a car anymore. It was about everything. Chapter 11, Fire on Steel. The warehouse smelled of rust, oil, and old ghosts. Mary stood between Paul and the car that held her father's soul. The silence was sharp enough to bleed. Paul moved slow, circling her like a vulture. His boots scraped concrete, each step a dare. You know what I like about you, he said, voice low, curling like smoke. You don't break easy. That makes it fun. Mary didn't flinch. You call this fun? Burning shops. Threatening women. His grin cracked wider, teeth flashing like knives. No. This, he spread his arms to the shadows. This is about teaching lessons. You walked into my world like you owned it. And now, his voice hardened. Now I take back what's mine. Mary's fists clenched until her nails dug blood. You own nothing. Not this car. Not me. The laugh that tore from him was dark and hollow. Then he lunged. Mary dodged, breath ripping through her lungs, boots skidding on oil-slick floor. Paul grabbed, fingers like iron, dragging her back into the stench of sweat and rage. She slammed an elbow into his ribs. He grunted, grip loosening. She bolted for the exit. Chains rattled as he caught her arm and yanked her down. The wrench in her bag spilled across concrete, ringing like a bell of war. She snatched it, swung hard. Metal kissed bone. Paul roared, staggering back, blood dripping down his temple. You're gonna pay for that, he snarled. Mary's chest heaved, muscles screaming, but her voice cut clean. I'm done paying. Paul charged again. The world blurred, a storm of fists, steel, and fury. Mary fought like hell, every strike fueled by nights of fear, every block a vow that she would not break. Then headlights flared, slicing the darkness. Tires screeched. John. He stormed in like a bullet, rage carved across his face. Behind him, Helena spilled from the SUV, steel pipe in hand. Paul froze, chest heaving, blood painting his grin. Bringing back up now? Cute. John's voice was a blade drawn slow. Touch her again and I bury you where you stand. Paul spat blood, smirk curling. Big words, boss. But you won't pull the trigger. John stepped closer, fists like granite. Try me. For one breath, the room crackled with violence. Then Paul laughed, a sound like broken glass, and bolted through the back door, vanishing into the storm. Mary collapsed against the car, lungs on fire. John crouched, his hands steady on her shoulders, eyes burning with something raw, rage and relief tangled tight. You okay? He rasped. She nodded, barely. He's not done, she whispered. No, John said, voice like thunder. But neither are we. Behind them, Helena stood guard, pipe dripping rainwater, eyes sharp as knives. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, cutting through the night like a warning. Mary looked at the car, her father's ghost gleaming under the flicker of dead lights. She ran her hand over the hood and breathed one promise. You'll live again. No matter what it takes. Chapter 12, When the Engine Roared. Dawn cracked pale and raw. The storm was gone, but its scars clung to the city. Mary stood in the garage, staring at the car, the one that carried her father's ghost. Black curves glistened under harsh white light. Broken yesterday. Whole today. Every bolt was tight. Every hose secure. No more sabotage. No more fear. Her hands trembled as she wiped the hood, grease streaking like war paint. Behind her, John leaned against the wall, sleeves rolled, face shadowed in thought. He hadn't slept either. Neither had Helena, who prowled the edges like a wolf, ready for the next strike. But Paul was gone. Vanished into the night like smoke. For now. Ready? John's voice was low steel. Mary nodded. No speech. No drama. Just the truth pounding in her ribs, this is it. She slid into the leather seat, the smell of oil and old dreams wrapping around her. For a breath, she saw her father's smile in the rearview, heard his laugh in the hum of silence. Never walk away from a car, or from yourself. Mary turned the key. The engine exploded to life, a roar so savage it shook the glass walls, ripping through the quiet like a lion freed from chains. The sound slammed into her chest, hot and fierce, burning every shadow out of her bones. Helena whooped, fists punching the air. John didn't move. Just watched her with eyes that burned like sun on steel. Mary stepped out, legs shaking, face streaked with sweat and triumph. She touched the hood, whispering through a broken smile. You're alive. And so am I. John crossed the floor, slow, deliberate. His voice was rough velvet when it came. You didn't just fix a car. You built a legend. Mary met his gaze, fire answering fire. And what now? He reached into his coat, pulled out a folder thick with papers, and set it on the hood. Contract. You handle every car I own. Full control. Full pay. Mary stared, breath catching. This is, millions. No, John said, a slow curve breaking his face. This is freedom. Helena grinned, eyes bright. Guess you're not just the girl who saved a truck anymore. Mary laughed, a sound cracked and wild, like glass shattering in sunlight. She signed without blinking, ink cutting the page like a blade. When she dropped the pen, something inside her shifted. The fear. The doubt. Gone. Outside, the sun clawed up from the horizon, bleeding gold across steel and glass. Mary walked to the car, laid her palm on its hood one last time. Not goodbye. A beginning. As the engine roared again, echoing through the vast garage, Mary knew the truth like a scar carved into bone. It was never just about cars. It was about her. About standing. Fighting. Winning. And no one, not Paul, not fear, not the past, would ever take that away again. What did you think of Strong Women's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what would you rate this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to keep up with all our stories. And check out more heartwarming ones right here on the final.